Hey friends, it's 7:15 in the morning on February the 27th, the beginning of the fourth day of Russian war against Ukraine. This is probably going to be a longer video because a lot of things happened and all of it is worthwhile news. Day 3 was a good day. I think all things considered, we can say that the tide is turning. All major cities are under Ukrainian control. The recon groups we talked about yesterday, which are constantly being landed in Kyiv and other major cities, have either been neutralized overnight or are still being hunted, the remainders of them. I saw beginning of the war, which was Wednesday or Thursday, that the CIA had made a projection that after 3 days, the organized Ukrainian army would disband, would become disorganized, the central control of the army would be lost, and Ukraine would go into guerrilla warfare. That did not happen. We see that the West is starting to treat the situation differently. The West is assessing the situation differently. How do we see this? It's because yesterday we have received an unprecedented amount of pledges of money, millions, in some cases billions of dollars, new ammunition, new kinds of weapons. For example, Germany had pledged 30 or 50 of their howitzers to come to Ukraine to fight. We see that the West had started to believe in Ukraine. The Ukrainian army, the volunteer units had proved that they will not fold, that we will withstand Putin. The cynical side of me, of course, says that, the West had seen that we're not folding and only then they are there to help. But I'm not being cynical. We're grateful for any help we can get, but we definitely need more. And I will talk about the objection that Russia is being easy on us now. I'm seeing this more and more. I'll address that in this video as well. In Kyiv alone, there have been about in the last 3 days, 30,000 signed up volunteers who received automatic weapons. That's apart from regular Ukrainian army, who's also refilling their troops all the time. Special news is that President was a total badass yesterday. I'll tell you this: I didn't vote for him. I don't think he's a very good peacetime president, but in this time, he has proved himself to be a worthy leader, great president. He's become a hero in Western news. I'm looking at The Economist, New York Times. They're actually using his actions to set an example for the Western leaders. The story was that he was offered to be evacuated from Kyiv by the United States, I think CIA. And in response, he said, "I need ammo. I don't need a ride." That's actually awesome. That's very admirable. He's being a true leader. Him and the mayor of Kyiv, Klitschko, who is the world champion heavyweight boxer. So as of now, I'm reading these analysts. I'm looking at their videos, and they're saying that de facto Ukraine is the leader of the free world right now. Ukraine is the only one, albeit by necessity, is standing up to the largest dictatorship on earth, while Western countries are being hesitant and don't want to engage directly. Remember, in my first video, I said that it's not a Ukrainian problem; it's the Western problem, and the military brass of the West understands this. The way we see how they understand this is that day 2 they had started to put some serious force of NATO on western borders of Ukraine without crossing them. Yeah, I hear you, Biden. You're saying, yeah, we'll never fight whatever sanctions, but we'll never go into Ukraine. The reason they're doing that is that they believe that in case Ukraine doesn't stand, Russia will go further. Those actions speak much louder than words. We know what you're thinking. You know Putin's not going to stop. So you need to be more decisive, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so we'll talk about a little bit about Russian army, and when we talk about why Russia is not just toying with us right now. All right, second major news of day number 3 was all the countries who were opposed to disconnecting Russian banks from the SWIFT messaging system have withdrawn with their objections. The three that had objections as of day 3 were Germany, France, and Hungary. All of them had withdrawn. So right now, the decision had been made to disconnect Russian banks from SWIFT, and it will be implemented in the next few days. It's obviously bureaucratic and not a fast process to do. So SWIFT itself is not a transactional system; it's a messaging system, which means that if Russia is disconnected, they will have to come up with their own messaging system. They'll have to do the agreements on the messaging with each individual bank in the West or all over the world, but in conjunction with the sanctions that President Joe Biden had announced on Monday from about forbidding Russia to use Japanese yen, U.S. dollar, and British pound in interbank operations. Those two in conjunction will actually start to isolate Russia more and more financially. So also connected to this is that the $693 billion of Russian central bank's reserves have been frozen, so they cannot use them. So that's a big help, which means that they cannot draw more finances to fuel the war. All right. With all those good news, the situation is still dangerous. The Russians are fighting all through the night. I'm looking at the newsreels. There is actually the messaging app Telegram had become like a huge help in operational news, like minute to minute. There's a couple of channels that report what people are seeing from their windows, what they're shooting videos of Russian tanks, machinery, troops moving through Ukraine. It's still dangerous. There's still a lot of machinery and troops pouring from Russia, from Belarus side as well. They were conscripting an elite Chechen group yesterday, and one of their units have been totally wiped out, thankfully. Russians also bombed an oil reserve in northern Ukraine. So for a while we thought it could be a major ecological catastrophe because of the toxic air, the toxic smoke that would spread over Ukraine or wherever the wind blows, really. But that did not come to that critical point. It was still pretty bad. The informational war is brutal. So official channels are slow, right? You only hear about things a few hours behind, but you need to, as Ukrainians, need to understand what's happening right now. They're using non-official aggregation channels, and Russia is trying to infiltrate those and put in fake news to demoralize Ukrainian people. So they would say something like, well, Ukrainian army is giving up, they're laying down arms, they're coming over to our side, we control their position, stuff like that. None of that is true. I mean, of course, there's prisoners of war that Russia has from our side, but it doesn't have the it's not en masse, right? The Ukrainian army is extremely strong. They're standing up. We're seeing videos of soldiers or civilians shooting videos of Russian tanks, transports, trucks being burned down by like 15 at a time. Thankfully to the ammunition and weapons we received from Great Britain. So that's actually very encouraging. Some of those videos are gruesome. There's parts of your Russian soldiers and stuff like that, but that is what's happening. Ukrainian army is holding on strong. So major bad news is that as of mid this night, the city of Kherson is being surrounded. It was encircled by Russian forces. So so we'll see what's happening there, but I believe it will be the surroundment will be broken. So it's still tough. There's still fighting going on, but the critical point had been passed. Ukrainian army is still strong. Okay, so let's address the objection. I'm seeing some analysts use some random commenters that Russia is using a light touch with Ukraine, that they're sending the recon groups, and these are not serious fights, and if they send in their elite groups, their Spetsnaz, which is special forces, things will Ukrainian army will not be able to withstand, and it's true. Russia hadn't carpet bombed any cities. That's they hadn't used bombers on the cities either, but there's no indication that they will. And here's why. Russian plans have been broken. As I said in my first video, they had hoped for a blitzkrieg, a very fast war. Within 2 or 3 days, they would overtake Ukrainian government, put their own puppet government in, and that will be the end of that, which is the scenario they hoped would be in Georgia, that the local army will just give up arms and stand down. They were not prepared for the resistance of the army, of how prepared Ukrainian army was, and why wouldn't it be? We've been at war for 8 years. Of course, we had a lot of time to prepare, but also that the local civilian population would take up arms. As you know, from the news from yesterday and the day before, the Ukrainian government was handing out automatic weapons if you just show them a passport and said, I'm going to go protect Ukraine. So in Kyiv alone, there's 30,000 volunteers with automatic weapons who are defending the city. So Putin did not expect that. And we see that the tactics are changing rapidly. So, for example, yesterday I had I told you a story about Putin changing his position to the opposite one within hours. In the first one, he said, yes, we're gonna negotiate with Ukraine for peace in Minsk, and then within a few hours came on and said, war generals, stage a coup in Ukraine, and we will talk to you after you have taken control. They are panicked. Yesterday, by the end of the day, Putin fled to Ural Mountains to talk to his businessman. And 2 things from that. One is he went to them. He went to Ural Mountains from Moscow. Secondly, the reason he wanted to talk to the businessman is because the businessmen are being hit by sanctions hard. They understand that they're being isolated. Their accounts have been frozen in Great Britain, in some countries in Europe. They're trying to withdraw their funds from Russia. So Putin is using all kinds of tactics intimidation tactics to get the funds, the money of the oligarchs to stay in Russia. So this is not a picture of a leader, of a dictator in control, because a lot of the arguments that we're seeing that, well, Russia is using a light touch on you guys, and Putin is not a dumb guy. Those are not exclusionary sentences. They can use light touch with us, but Putin can be confused and panicked and did not know what to do. Another thought I heard that was pretty interesting is that Putin is not a military guy. He's KGB, and KGB's tactics are always special operations. In fact, when he declared war on Ukraine, actually there was no declaration of war, because he called it a special operation of denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. He thinks in operations, but for various reasons, and I don't have a ton of time to discuss this, but for various reasons, that does not work on urban warfare in Ukraine, because we're really prepared for the special forces. All right. As far as the Russian army, so about half and half, they're using the conscripted army and half of the contract army. The conscripted guys who Ukrainian army is taking into our custody as prisoners, they're saying that they did not know where they were going. And half of me is like, yeah, they're all telling the same story. They probably were taught to say this when they were captured. by Ukrainian forces. But I knew a guy in the 90s who told me the same story about the Chechen war. He said they put us on trains, and they told us we were going to training. We were in the train for 2 days straight, and then when they unloaded us, we were in Chechnya, and they told us to fight. So it could be they're demoralized. They did not expect the resistance. They did not expect a Ukrainian army and the volunteers to be so prepared. They didn't expect the civilian population to resist them. What they were expecting by their own words is that they would relatively quickly take over major cities, take over Kyiv, that the large part of civilian population would actually welcome them as liberators. Yeah. So that did not happen. There's reports of some parts of Russian army in the North Ukraine who are trying not to fight. So they're trying to make deals or plead with the locals to hide them when Ukrainian army comes. Some of them siphon off gas from their tanks and selling it to the locals. So I wouldn't say it's 100% what's happening, but there is actually videos of abandoned tanks, abandoned machinery of Russian forces. Nothing is done to it. It's not destroyed, but it's just empty. There's nobody there. All the hatches have been opened. So we can say, and this is what the official position of Ukrainian command is, that Russian army is demoralized. They don't know what to do. They're actually hungry. There is multiple reports of Russian soldiers going around and asking for food from the locals because they're not being taken care of. The ones who are calling from captivity and are captured on video, they're saying that our command had betrayed us and we don't know what to do. Please do something to free us from Ukrainian captivity. Okay, so that's the update. Things are still pretty bad. Russia is pushing. More and more troops are arriving. We're hearing reports that Belarus is gonna mobilize their reserves to send to Ukraine. Russia had tried to, this was I think 2 days ago, had tried to seek military help from Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan said no, because basically you're the aggressor. We'll only help when you're being attacked. So these moves are telling us that Russians are running out of people, running out of resources. Okay, so yesterday I didn't have a really good answer to what can I do to help, and today I have a few options. One is I'm seeing a lot of big cities protesting Russian aggression. Do that. That shows your government, your resolution, and your commitment to oppose Putin, to end war in Russia. That captures a lot of media attention, and that does help. It helps Ukrainian people to feel that we're not alone. It helps your government to make decisive decisions. I think a lot of the pledges for money, weapons, and more sanctions have happened because your government had seen how you, regular citizens, are responding to the crisis in Ukraine. Number two, donate to Ukrainian army, or if you're a pacifist, donate to the Red Cross or the Ukrainian foundation called Повернись живим, which means come back alive, who are helping to restore with blood banks and medical equipment. Especially in the U.S., write to your local representatives for a stronger resolution from Western countries, because some of the leaders are still being hesitant. They're trying to gauge their own internal position, but also look good on the international position. Tell them what you think. Find out who your local rep is, senator in the U.S., members of parliament in Europe, and tell them what you think. We need stronger resolutions. We need more sanctions. We need more ammunition, and eventually we're going to need peacekeepers on Ukrainian soil. We're holding on. It's great to think about that Ukrainian army being so small, had swollen to and stepped up to the challenge, but realistically, we need more help. The situation is still it's still difficult. Finally, if you're a total badass like our President Zelensky, Ukraine is calling for volunteers from all over the world to come and help fight in Ukrainian army. If you have experience and you're mad enough at Putin, and if you understand the danger of dictatorship of the Russian Empire, this is important. Actually, I'm seeing from different sources that quite a bit of people from Europe are volunteering in the Ukrainian army. All right, so that's it. Really long video, but generally good day yesterday. Situation is difficult. Please continue to pray for us. Please continue to protest. Please continue to tell your government what you think. And we appreciate your help. And together we will win. Slava Ukraini.